Hey class, Bob Greavy here. In this PowerPoint presentation with audio, I'm going to cover Chapter 5. Chapter 5 looks at different types of information technology roles in organizations. So here's our learning outcomes. These are the goals for the next 20 minutes or so. What to take away out of this chapter. Number one, we want to look at those roles and then what are the traits of the individual who is most likely to succeed in that role. What are the responsibilities? Second bullet point you see there, we'll talk about this gap that exists between IT know-how and business know-how, and along those lines, we'll talk about the synergy that exists if you can bridge that gap. If you're someone with both IT know-how and business know-how, there's a premium there. And then we'll talk a little bit about ethics and security and what it is about technology that makes those small problems enormous problems. Okay, so here's those 5 roles we're going to look at. I'm going to give a real quick definition of each of these. The Chief Information Officer is a business executive and a leader, not so much a techie. The Chief Technology Officer is a techie, is a technical person. So if you recall from our measurement chapter, we talked about how the CIO, or rather, we talked about how effectiveness is defined in that context as is the ultimate goal being achieved. So if we have e-commerce, our sales good would be a measure of effectiveness, and how efficiency was a measure of is the technology working. So here the CIO is responsible for the effectiveness of technology. The CTO, Chief Technology Officer, is responsible for the efficiency of technology. That's one simple way to separate those two roles. Moving downward, we have a Chief Security Officer. This person is responsible for securing data. So if you think about where data is vulnerable, you might think about telecommunications when data is traveling. You might think about database or database management systems where the data resides. So this person is someone with a great deal of knowledge in those areas. And cybersecurity is an area that's just exploding because of the prevalence of data theft, of just abuse of other people's data. The Chief Privacy Officer is someone who might be an attorney. This is someone who's responsible for ensuring that the organization is taking the right steps with their customer data, for example, or someone who's protecting the internal knowledge, internal data within an organization. The Chief Knowledge Officer is someone who is responsible for ensuring that the organization is leveraging the organizational knowledge. So if you think of knowledge as an asset, an organizational asset, this person's responsible for leveraging that asset, for making sure the organization is getting the full value from its organizational knowledge. Okay, so let's break these down a little bit more as we go forward. Okay, the CIO, or the Chief Information Officer. This person again is a leader. This person is an executive. This is someone in the C-suite. So you think about this person as someone who understands the industry, understands business. So this is someone who understands accounting, finance, someone who understands marketing and economics, and they happen to know something about technology. And what they bring to the table is strategically, how can the organization use technology? So this person's know-how is not about, let's say, writing code or creating software so much as it is about leadership, about business acumen, about getting things done. So if you look at their broad functions outline, you have a manager. This person is managing a schedule, a budget. So this person ensures projects are done on time and within budget. This person is managing people. They're ensuring that the projects are completed on time, and therefore those people that must deliver that understand the purpose. So there's that communication gap we just mentioned. This person is responsible for bridging that gap. for communicating business needs to technical people and communicating technical, let's say, limitations or possibilities to business people. So they're in the middle where there might be a gap that exists. Leadership is necessary because often when you implement a new technology, you're implementing change. Perhaps not often, perhaps always. So technology quite often involves change, a change in how we do things. So often when we purchase technology or implement technology, we're implementing change, we're doing things differently. That requires a champion. That requires someone who can communicate and sell the idea and convey to, let's say, employees that this will better their lives or it's good for the organization. Someone who can work through the resistance that often comes with change. All of this requires communication. You've heard that thread, whether you're communicating that change is necessary, whether you're communicating in bridging the gap between business folks and technical folks, communication is key. So you should have a pretty good understanding of a CIO, and what should come to mind is the business person, not so much the technical person. Let's see, Chief Knowledge Officer. The Chief Knowledge Officer is responsible for taking the knowledge in an organization and leveraging it. What does that mean? So if you think about a company called SAS, many of you probably use SAS, but it's statistical or data analytics software. They're always on the list of companies that are the best places to work in America. And why they're on that list? If they interview the president of that company, it's a privately held company, the owner of the company, and he says he recognizes that at 5 o'clock in the evening, the majority of his net worth leaves the building. So he's recognizing that his value, his portfolio's value, is tied up in the minds and the knowledge, the know-how of his employees. So what I want you to grasp, because we don't think about this a lot, is knowledge is this asset, just like a building would be an asset, just like capital is an asset. Knowledge is an asset. So this person is charged with taking that knowledge and making the most of it. So how do you do that? Well, first you've got to identify where knowledge may exist in an organization, and oftentimes this involves digital artifacts where we're recognizing where perhaps knowledge exists in email threads, in PowerPoint presentations, in customer data, in project files and customer files, but also recognizing within an organization what people know how to do what tasks. Brother works for an accounting firm, and he explained to me that if he had a question about a specific, unusual, let's say a tax question, he does international taxes, then he could search a knowledge network for an answer to a question he has, and he might receive query results that included the names of people or the names of clients that have faced similar questions. So the idea there is to not reinvent the wheel. So the chief knowledge officer has to somehow organize the knowledge that exists so that other people can find that knowledge and make use of it. Chief privacy officer. Before I go to chief privacy officer, think of the chief knowledge officer kind of like a librarian for an organization. They're curating the knowledge there. So the chief privacy officer, they're making sure that the organization is using data ethically and legally. So there's some industries where this is a much bigger issue than others, and I'm thinking in particular of the financial industries where we have government regulations concerning what we can do with our customers, very private, sensitive data. I'm thinking of healthcare industries and HIPAA and the laws that govern what hospitals and medical facilities can do with patient data in that instance. So those types of entities are more likely to have a chief privacy officer. Again, this is somebody who might have a law degree. This is someone who has to understand the law and the organization's responsibilities concerning that. The chief security officer, again, this is a more technical person, where the chief privacy officer is more of a knowledge type person, knowledge of the law. And this person might have a better knowledge of telecommunications and database and making sure that technically we're doing what we need to do to protect data. So what do you do to protect data? Well, you've all purchased something online using a credit card. Simple example, you see the little padlock in the corner. That's something called a secure socket layer. That's an indication that they're using SSL, secure socket layer. And what that indicates is that we're encrypting data. So I'll oversimplify this, but essentially, rather than sending your credit card number on the internet, what you'll do is we'll encrypt that. We'll apply an algorithm to those numbers, and then that algorithm will spit out just random jargon. That random jargon is then pushed out to the internet. So that if it's intercepted, it's worthless. And then when it's received, another algorithm decodes that data. So if I wanted to send you the number 5, I might first multiply it by 3 and add 2, so I'd send you a 17. 17 means nothing. And then when it arrives, you'll subtract 2 and divide by 3, and you'll get the number 5. So that's way simpler than what actually happens, but that's representative of the type of thing that happens with encryption. This is someone with a working knowledge of that type of information, along with various types of threats to security and how to manage them. This is a hot area. This is an exploding area because of the exponential growth in threats to data security. So if you want to make sure you have multiple job offers, jump into this field. The Chief Technology Officer, I mentioned a moment ago, this is someone responsible for ensuring the efficiency of an organization's technology. So where the CIO is strategic and in those conversations with other executives about how the organization will compete, this person is primarily tasked with making sure the technology works properly. Are the servers up? Are they responsive? Is the system up and going at a reliable place? We looked at those measurements in the last chapter, those measurements of efficiency. What concerns CIOs the most? Enhancing customer satisfaction, security, technology evaluation. If you read through these, you'll notice these are management or strategic or executive type issues. So this person is also someone who evaluates alternative technical solutions and makes recommendations to the company. This is someone who manages projects. This is that leader we talked about. So what's important for an IT, for a CIO position, or this slide indicates executive IT roles. Look at the bottom. What's least important? Technical proficiency. So really, this role is not about doing. This is in that I mean, this role is not about writing code or working on a network or this type of thing. At the executive level, it's really about understanding the big picture, understanding all of business, and then understanding technology and the role technology can play in profitability. How can technology make us more efficient, or how can technology enhance revenues? Okay, there used to be a gap on Saturday Night Live with Jimmy Fallon before he was the host of The Late Show, where he was this nerdy technical guy, and he was condescending and rude, and he would always make fun of and insult the business people he was supporting. And that video, if you'll go to YouTube and look for Jimmy Fallon Computer Guy, you can watch that. But it kind of illustrates in a funny way the gap that exists between business personnel and IT personnel. They kind of speak two different languages. Well, this is a problem. So here's the thing. Quite often, an IT person is solving a business problem. And business people quite often utilize technology to solve or satisfy business issues or exploit business opportunities. So you have this problem set, this opportunity set that exists in a business language. So think about some of the terminology you use in marketing, some of the terminology you might use in accounting or finance. Uh, and you have a very specific understanding of, of specific issues in those fields. And then think about the terminology, the words, the acronyms that are used by technical people. And if we can't communicate between these two, we wind up with solutions to the wrong problem, or we wind up missing opportunities to exploit some new business environment, for example, because we don't have the technical knowledge to do so. So here's the thing. This is one of the reasons this course is in the MBA curriculum. If you can bridge that gap, if you can have both sets of knowledge, you're more valuable. I have an example I often use. I have a brother I mentioned a moment ago who is a CPA, but he's also very technical. He was one of the kids in high school that built his own computer. His first job, when most people were flipping burgers, his first job was as a data entry clerk, if that tells you anything. But what happened when he got into his career, he would be tasked with solving accounting problems, and he would often apply a technical solution to it. For example, he wrote an algorithm that did something on a computer that had taken multiple people multiple days to perform. So he used a technical solution to an accounting problem and was able to solve a problem that typically took days and multiple people. The computer was able to do in a matter of minutes. So that's an example of the kind of synergy that exists. Synergy, of course, 1 + 1 = 3. If you've got business know-how and you've got technical know-how, you've got a situation where 1 + 1 = 3, and you can command a premium in the marketplace. So here's an obvious slide. Business people must seek to increase their understanding of IT. That's why you're in this course. IT people likewise must seek their better understanding of business. We actually have a computer science degree at the undergraduate program, or the undergraduate level here, that incorporates about 8 or 9 business courses for this purpose, so that when they get out and they can become a software developer, they understand the problems they're solving or the opportunities they're exploiting. Short of this, it's the CIO's role to ensure this communication between the two. Let's talk now, switching gears a little bit, let's talk about ethics and security. So I'm a believer that by the time you get to grad school, your ethics have pretty well been established. And I often joke that this is something that most of the time happens with mom and dad, or at a very young age, or grandma, granddad, or guardian, or whoever that is for you. But I want to talk about how technology just exacerbates the already problems that are out there. So we have technology that is not quite free, but almost free, and might as well be in some cases. So specifically, we have data storage that is ridiculously cheap. I can go to Best Buy this evening, and I can purchase a 2 terabyte hard drive for under $100, I believe, or right around $100, which would have been just unheard of even 10 years ago. So data storage is just unbelievably cheap. So much to the point that it is free in some cases. You can store data for free online in a lot of different ways. Free email is one example. Dropbox has a free service to some point. So data storage is cheap. Next thing, processing power is cheap. Today's laptops have more power, you've heard this, than the processing power that put a man on the moon. The early days of computing, 1 meg of data storage sold for $1 million. That'd make your flash drive worth billions. So data storage and data processing power, dirt cheap. The third thing is telecommunications is cheap. Moving data around is inexpensive. So if you have high-speed DSL or Cox Communications, you have just a ridiculous amount of capacity to move data on the internet that nobody had even 20 years ago. So things are cheap. Things are cheap. Now add to that we have devices that are on our persons. We have smartphones, and these smartphones are connected to the internet. And we have this situation where everyone has access to this internet without economic hurdles. And you have a situation where what someone might have done on a small scale 30 years ago, now they can do for very low cost on a small scale. So I would ask you, was identity theft an issue 100 years ago? Sure. You could go into a bank and claim to be someone else and try to pull funds from their account. The difference now is I can do these sorts of evil things, unethical things on a grand scale. Was privacy an issue? Yes, I could take an embarrassing picture of someone and share it with my friends 30, 40 years ago. The difference now, I can put that on Facebook or I can put that on the internet and instantly share that with, potentially 1 billion people. It's just the same problems are around. Technology has made those problems go from limited in scope to enormous in scope without any cost implications. So this is a big deal. So what are ethics? Principles and standards that guide our behavior toward other people. Privacy. Again, privacy is this right to be left alone. I don't want to share my thoughts, feelings, etc. with other people. I shouldn't have to. Now, the thing about privacy is, if someone wants to share something that I don't want to share, they can do so on this enormous scale. I'm perhaps not telling you anything you don't know. I know often I'll check the Google Earth and I'll look at the picture of our home. I'll just go to an intersection and I can go. I bet most of you have done this as well. And I'm always curious whether one of the kids will be standing in the yard, or you've probably gone to Google Street View to see which car was parked in front of your house that day. And you have to ask yourself, is this a good thing or a bad thing, or how do I feel about that? Because I didn't say anyone could take a picture of my home and share it with the world, and yet there it is out there. Big issue, big issue because of these reasons we've talked about. Okay, here's some business issues with respect to ethics and technology. The first one up here, intellectual property. Intellectual property is not new. Intellectual property has been around forever. What's happened now is intellectual property can be stolen, shared, abused much more easily because of the internet. So if someone now creates a music video or creates software, what happens now is it can be distributed through the internet rapidly. So what has always been a problem is suddenly an enormous problem because of the prevalence of the internet. Same thing with copyright infringement. A couple of terms to understand: fair use doctrine. This is law that indicates that I can use intellectual property under certain circumstances without violating the law. For example, if I wanted to insert a relevant cartoon into this PowerPoint, I could, on a limited basis for academic purposes, do so, so long as I cited that. So there are circumstances under which it's okay to use intellectual property. Pirated software and counterfeit software, you probably know what those things are. The difference here is pirated software is stolen software. We know it's stolen. For counterfeit, you might purchase counterfeit software and not realize it, and thinking it's the real thing, but someone has counterfeited it and sold it. So all of this stuff becomes, just enormous problems because we're all connected to the internet. Okay. Security. So let's talk about security in terms of someone hacking into a web server. Okay. And essentially what that can do is through something like a denial of service attack where your server is hit so many times that it crashes, that can shut your business down if you're, for example, an e-commerce site. So what does that do for you? Think about what happens if eBay goes down for a minute. How many sales are missed? Or Amazon goes down for 5 minutes. How many millions of dollars of revenue is at least delayed and perhaps lost if that happens. So let's look at some of these costs of downtime. Financial performance. Again, you can't do transactions if your servers are down. That's similar to what's listed there under revenue. Directly lose sales. Damaged reputation perhaps could be the most long-term and perhaps the most harmful benefit because so much of what we do online involves trust. We've got the small company I mentioned to you in the last chapter that if the site goes down, then people lose faith in our ability to deliver this audience response system, and we lose sales in that. Okay. So all of this to say that information security is a huge deal. It's a huge problem. Every time that a solution is generated to information security, someone else figures out a new way to threaten information security. So it's a moving target. So protecting our information is something that there's not a solution for that is permanent. It's an ongoing kind of battle that must be waged from now into the foreseeable future.